Hey, it's Chris. Crowdfunding roundup. The calm before the storm. Now, again, we have about 10 projects we're going to be covering this week, but September, if you missed earlier in the week, I covered September, and that was before, literally, on the day it dropped, that Awakened Realms is like, oh, by the way, we're doing Dragon Eclipse as well in the middle of the month on the 19th. So there are like 5 big name projects every single week for the month of September, which is insane. Insane. And quality seems to be overall improving. I like doing these roundups. Been playing a lot of games this past month as well. August was by far and away the most plays of the year so far. Not the most games played, that was July, but the most for me personally. So, that aside, let's do this. You want to know more about what games I played and sneak peeks about my feelings on them? Go subscribe to Patreon. I'll tell them right now. Let's go. First up, Keymaster, Harvest. Nature-themed company. They're going strong with this one. Over $250,000 already this week, 2,000 people. They like what they're putting out. Just solid games. And this is a little bit in the line of a worker placement engine build style. And you can kind of check out what they've got going on. They say they've got some unique mechanics going on in this. Again, I always put like a little disclaimer that until I really see what it is, okay, how unique is it? They're offering deluxeifications. Keymaster doesn't do a lot of exclusives. They don't do a lot of additional gameplay content. The difference between the pledge levels with a lot of these this week is really just, are you okay with deluxeifications or are you okay with retail? That's what you have to ask yourself. Asymmetric, slight, starting farmers, if you will. And they say right here, it's a combination of sort of your Stardew Valley and your, what is it right here? Yeah, Animal Crossing, right? Take that for what you will, but that's what you've got going on. Unique turn structure, but it's really unique because what you're doing at the beginning of each round is you have these influence or initiative cards, essentially. And they give you a different initiative order, but they also give you a different bonus. And you don't just draft them, you take one and put yours back into the pile that's available. And so then you go back and forth depending on what you want and what order you want to go into, because then you move your little wheelbarrows, which are your workers, to the different places on the board itself. And they're going to be open and closed ones. Closed ones being those slots where you can only put one wheelbarrow, open ones where you can put as many as you'd like. But going in some of the open slots as one of the first people there is going to get you more rewards. And so then you're also going to have an asymmetric farm here on the, I think, what is this, on the far side maybe the middle one here. I think it's the far side. And what you have there is you have tiles that you're going to be laying down face down that you're going to have to like reap and, you know, grow and tend. And so what you have is these face down tiles that will cover up certain squares, and you're doing a little polyomino seeding of said crops, but then you also have to tend the crops, which actually grows the fruit. But then you have to then sell the crops, but you don't sell all the crops individually, you sell them all at once. So you want to have them all tended and watered and, you know, done all to your satisfaction. And how they take up different space is going to be the big difference there, right? Strawberries, for example, when you grow strawberries, they each take up 2 spaces per seed. The blueberries, they take up 1, but they take up 1 stacking in the same area, so you can get a bunch of them in one area. Pumpkins get you the most points, but they also take up more area per pumpkin. How do you want to do that? And you can see here, these are the seeds, the crop tokens, as well as then the actual fruit themselves when you actually grow them. And again, like I said, here's the deluxeifications in forms of the wooden components. And it's just whether or not you want it, though. You know, I think it says it plays over 4 rounds, and the other actions you're going to be taking, you're growing the actual seeds, you're watering them, you're getting fertilizer, and you can increase the size of the bucket of the water that you can hold, because again, you're doing sort of watering all as one. Which ones do you want to water? How much water can you hold in the first place? So how are you action optimizing in that way? I don't know if it's necessarily that different. And they allow for a snake draft variant, you know, for the asymmetric characters and the asymmetric boards, because down here in the lower left-hand corner of this GIF, you can see where the asymmetry of those boards is available as well. So yeah, there's the turn order that I mentioned, the wheelbarrows, planting, tending, and harvesting, clearing, as I said, to get those seedlings planted in the first place, and then upgrading with buildings. So I mean, I think it's slightly different. I wouldn't call it a vast departure from things, but doing something in at least the slightly different or slightly unique combination of things as a whole. I think the price is fine. You know, $89 for deluxeification, probably a little bit more than some of the other ones we'll see this week. But again, it's whether or not you want to back deluxeification on crowdfunding. That's really it. So there you go. That's first up this week. Second up this week, again, it's going to be a very interesting test. Mantic here is hitting the nostalgia hard with Worms, and they mention it several times on the campaign page here at over $300,000 and 2,500 backers. The main thing I'm just not a huge fan of is I just don't really think the miniatures are, well, I know miniatures are never necessary. Miniatures are not necessary in this project. I think tokens would have been fine. I think standees would have been fine. And I guess that's a question that's going to come at the retail version of things. And I think there's going to be some element of that as well. When you can see the breakdown of the columns down below, they talk you through what's going to be available at retail, what's the standard pledge, and what's the expanded pledge here. And they're locking some gameplay content, as Mythic did, I believe, with Hellboy as well on here. And there's also a 5 to 6 player expansion, which is going to be the main other reason potentially to get it at least at the tier, what is the basic level tier here, for $100. That's $100. I wasn't looking earlier. I thought it was $79. Nope, that's 79 pounds. That's a significant difference because, again, like some of these other deluxeifications as miniatures, I'm just not a big fan. The other thing that's not very clear, they're doing daily unlocks essentially, which again, like day 3, right now at the time of me filming this, is 2 extra additional cards for days 2 and 3 so far, which is fine, right? Randomly generated tile setup. You play at least 1 tile per person. You can expand more though, depending on the number of rounds you want. And then you go through this drop deck, and these can be laying cards down in the form of weapons and ammunition and just crazy things, if you're familiar with the worms, where you're just trying to take each other out. The thing I'm not very clear about though is when your worm gets injured, you put them on their side, as they show you down in the GIF down below. But then they say if you're out, then you get hit again. But it's not really clear if it's just like 1 hit knocked over and 2 hits out. There's no rule book. If you want to check out the paid previews, you can check out the 3 paid previews on the page, but there's no actual, okay, what kind of overhead does this have? What kind of depth does this have? All of them talk about it being fun and playing off the nostalgia and hitting true on the nostalgia. But is it going to hit true if you don't have the nostalgia? Is it going to hit true if you haven't read the rule book yet? Those are the questions that I can't answer based on this page alone. I mean, they even have like Super Sheep as one of the cards down here, right? So if you're a fan of worms, you're going to know what Super Sheep is. Any worm gets any weapon. At the bottom of this drop deck, essentially, is like a sudden death mode. And you put in randomly one of these sudden death modes that changes the alter of the landscape completely. And so you're going to have to just deal with that so you don't like turtle or endlessly play back and forth, or that the game is just going to go on and on and on. And that's true with the game in the first place, right? And it runs you through, again, just the most basic general thing. A couple game modes as well. You can have some other additional ones that you can do. Blast damage increasing. Again, you got all the paid previews here that you can check out if you want. And so the other issue is you're paying for alternate sculpts. I don't really need alternate sculpts. Like, there's no difference between them in the first place. So why do I need alternate sculpts? You're paying a lot of money for alternate sculpts there. That's the problem I have with this. The other problem I have with this is right here. It says 80 cards. Like I tried to say, okay, are the stretch values worth it? Are the stretch goals something that you can say, okay, it's more than just a promo pack of 7 cards, like with Garfield, right? Where you can go, okay, 7 cards in the scheme of things is not a huge amount, but it's only telling you that there are 80 cards here. And so even if they do a daily unlock, and let's scroll up here a second for how many days. So you'll have 14 cards, 15 cards maybe, unless they're doing multiple cards here in a minute. I don't really know. That's the question that you have to ask yourself. And by the end of the campaign, you'll know like how big of a fraction comparatively of these cards are going to be this. But I also wouldn't put it past them to give you more alternative sculpts or something else along those lines. So then, is 100 pounds really worth it? Because again, no rule book. And you're looking at even more money for this ultimate experience here for another like $60, essentially, right? 2 new landscape tiles, a little bit of different terrain that you're doing, art prints, neoprene dice trays, no thank you. Matte, maybe. Extra dice, not really. But here's the chart that I was talking about above, right? You're getting 4 sculpts, and I guess maybe they are doing miniatures at retail, so that's kind of nice to know. But end of 2024, I mean, kind of far away, kind of not far away. But that's the extras that you're playing for right there as a whole. Plastic, 5-6 player expansion. Now this is the extra weapons and cards. This is the thing I'm not clear about. Is this associated with the 5th and 6th player expansion? Now they actually say though that the reveals are here. So what is this? I mean, this is just, is this associated with this or not? Is this, I mean, that's the part that's going to pee people off. And that's the part that's not going to get anything sold on, retail if you're looking at that at all. Like if you said bundle this separately, or if you said, you know what, we may include these separately, or you actually even declared what's going to be separate, that'd be nice to know. Or if you buy this retail version, are you going to get like 4 weapons each? And then it's just kind of, well, bleh. So, this campaign is just kind of structured weird. And I'm not a huge fan of it. Friendly shipping, whatever that is. I mean, sure, it's another friendly shipping. Friendly shipping, another $30. So you're paying $130 for this. I mean, I like nostalgia. I was a huge fan of this game growing up. I had it on my PC and I played it all the time. I love the heck out of it. But for $130, it's a wait for retail on the secondary market from me right now. But check it out if you're interested. Next up, body of evidence. I have no clue. They give you no information. Somehow almost 1,000 people are willing to back this based off of a body of work previously. Haha, you see what I did there? $45,000 though. It's 2 to 3 hours of chapters of deduction, reasoning, and, you know, no spoilers because they can't tell you anything in it. So you're kind of just looking at this page and going, why are you willing to spend how much money? $40 plus shipping on this. I guess people are willing to take a chance on it if you like that sort of thing. Anyway, gotta highlight it, gotta talk about it. I mean, not enough information to make me want to spend $40 to $60 depending on shipping, so take that for what it is. Colossal Cat, you know what, Bezier? Bezier has their thing, I guess. Bezier takes games that are no longer wanted at retail. Just kidding. Bezier is taking the games that are doing well at retail or have done well at retail, even recently. This is by far and away the most recent, which is sort of irritating as well, right? Something you can make an argument, at least like Suburbia was a couple years out. You know, at least some of the other ones that they did, like Castles of Mad King Ludwig, was a couple years out. This is like a year out, and they decided, hey, do you want a super big box version of this? Hey, do you want to pay like almost $50 for a stuffed animal? You know, I'm on the stuffed animal market, right? So, you know, a lot of other stuff, you know, when I've done them in the past, especially when we talked about like Sagrada Artisans, right? Like I looked up and I compared the price of a box of colored pencils and how much they were charging versus how much you can just go buy it at Walmart or your local thrift store or whatever, right? Same thing here, right? It's like a 12-inch stuffed animal black cat and they're charging like over $40 for it. You can go buy that easily for like $20 plus anywhere else online. So, yeah, it's not going to be exactly the same, but you don't really need it. The two expansions are offering things related to the physics components of this game because the essential version or the explanation of this game is that you're playing a trick-taking game from 2 to 5 players, and with Schrodinger's cat. If you're not familiar with Schrodinger's cat is essentially saying there's this cat in the box, and until you open the box, you don't know if the cat's alive or dead because, you know, you just don't know. It could be either, it could be neither, and that's sort of Schrodinger's conundrum, right? That's you don't know what quantum state it's in. And until you open it, the quantum state is variable. And so the same thing is happening with the colors in these tricks in these games is you don't know what color these cards are going to be until you play them, but there's only so many colors and so many cards, and if you play incorrectly, you may end the round early, which causes your tricks that you actually won, and you're trying to predict how many tricks you get in the first place, hence the prediction, you know, the Schrodinger's prediction. Anyway, so you're trying to figure out what that is, and if you screw that up, then you actually can get negative points. And, you know, inclusivity and, you know, people who are bad dexterity-wise, they decided that you need these huge colossal tokens. You can play a huge colossal price with the 2 new expansions, which, again, I'm not sure are completely necessary, or I worry about them complicating it a little too much because the Doppler effect here actually reduces the chances of you getting those negative points like I just mentioned. And the string theory gives you more options, potentially to score more bonus points as you go along the way. Larger card numbers, 5th player as well, and here's the plushie that I mentioned at $39 or $59 for just that, and $79 for it as a whole. So, yeah, I don't know. That's a $20 plushie, right? That's what I was talking about. But 15 inches, I don't think 15-inch plushie difference, a 5-inch plushie difference here is going to be worth $40. Yeah, I mean, $45 there separately. Maybe I'm wrong. You know, I've got 3 kids under the age of 10, so you know I've got like 100 stuffed animals in my house. Anyway, take that for what you will. Yeah, Bezier's doing strong though. I mean, 117,000, but I have to feel like that's, you know what? Actually, that's really good considering this game's trick-taking nature and the mechanism that kind of goes underrated all the time. So it's a lot of money, actually, all things considered, but take that for what you will. If it's for you, go check it out. Now, let's go over to Potions of Azerland. I'm going to give them a little bit of grief here because the rulebook is not on the page. I believe it's over on Board Game Geek, though. Essentially, what you're doing is you have several different action selections, 5 in a round, and you're going to be trying to either make potions, drink potions, or utilize potions, sell potions, essentially, to get victory points by the end of the game. So you're trying to decide as you make these potions whether or not it's more beneficial to give the general populace the sale of those in order to get victory points and more money, or if it's better that you take them yourself, tasting your own wares, right? Isn't that what they say not to do if you're in that business of... Anyway, you're going to potentially take them and get bonuses that are going to help you or behoove you in making more of them in the first place. And so it's the combination or the balancing act of those two things. And so as your action selection, 5 per round, you have the option to put in just either the gold or the actual action of the action selection system in the first place. And again, the big difference here this week with this one as well, for a $50, again, for a $30 difference here, is the deluxifications. There is slight stretch goals, slight gameplay down below, but otherwise that's about it. And you can see again here, 4 additional cards, 4 additional cards. So they haven't either of those yet at the time of me filming this, so we'll see. But 6 rounds, doing the potions, forage, study, market, brew, and fulfill. Those are the things that I mentioned, right? As you go through, you're getting priority tiles, and that's going to tell you what priority order you're going to essentially take those actions. And going earlier in those spots, again, just like with harvest, is actually going to matter. It's going to get you better for what you're trying to do, and it's going to be how you're basically just doing your action selection in the first place. And you can see that these cards are double-sided, so depending on how you slot them will be what you're choosing to either go or forego. Now again, drinking your potions to get those abilities, or executing the actions including dice, as well as the market phase of selling them instead. So, I mean, it looks like something solid. I can't speak to how solid, though. You're going to have to check out one of these videos. By the way, Bitewing Games, I know they run their own campaigns, but their how-to play videos are actually excellent, in case you're looking for under-the-radar ones. So give that a look-see if you're really looking for it. Otherwise, I'd like a little bit more information on the campaign page, just a tiny bit more, because these GIFs just basically give you the briefest summary. Why would I get this one over other multi-phase engine building action selection games, essentially, is what I'm looking for on this page, and it's just a slight bit lacking there, and I'm going to argue that between that and being just a little under the radar, that's why they're, you know, only at $36,000, but I mean, that's still 150% of funding at the time of me filming this, which is really good considering it's still got 4 weeks to go through the laborious, tough month of September, like I talked about previously. So there you go. Next up, Paper Apps Golf. I really have mixed feelings about this. This might as well have been just an AI generated board game, because essentially what they're doing is they're having AI or a computer generate these random little golf courses, put them in a pad and selling them to you. Essentially is what I believe. And then you roll dice, and how far you hit it in what direction and mulligans is essentially just that, right? It's a little bit slightly different print and play or roll and write, as you can see there. I mean, okay. PDF is $5, physical is $7. So that's all I'm going to say. Paper Apps Golf. Go check it out. Next up, Panda Royale, and this is basically just rolling dice, and it's 100 dice that you're paying for with 100 little pads as well to go along with that to score. 2 to 10 players, 20 to 30 minutes. All you do is essentially over 10 rounds is you draft one more dice into your dice pool. You have one die to begin with, you roll it, you get those points. You just keep summing up. All these dice, depending on the color, will also have different sides, and they'll all have different powers. Doubling it, stealing other people's dice, having a pity die as the pink one if you're in the last place, which is a D20. So all those things that are going to go along with this. It's just whether or not you want to pay, you know, about, what is it, like 20 or 30 bucks? $40 for 100 dice is $40 plus shipping worth 100 dice. I mean, it's a cute, clever concept. I'm just not sure I want to pay for 106 custom colored sparkled dice. So it's simple. It's straightforward. It is what it is. I think it's very, you know, just light, and take that. Potentially a little bit of take that, because again, you can steal other people's dice, you can swap with them, but otherwise it's just sum totaling dice and adding one every single time. So just kind of nice, straightforward, nice to talk about once in a while. So it's already almost 200% funded, so check it out. Next up, we're talking about For Horseman, the Apocalyptic co-op game. And I apologize, they actually reached out to me, and I'm not even sure if I got back to them or if this is one that I said, hey, I'm swamped at the time. But this is a hard co-op in the line of things now, per the quotes on this page that you'll see, doing something unique. And it gives me sort of an Aeon's End sort of vibe with a little bit of the Deliverance, Angels and Demons side of things that we saw previously on crowdfunding. Because essentially what you've got is you've got this corruption and you've got your valor, and that you're just trying to keep your head above water while gaining followers, converting followers, and using corruption as well as a mechanic to cause your heroine or hero to eventually become fallen if they get too much, if it outweighs. But if you can lose that corruption as well, you can be back in the game or have a chance to redeem yourself, essentially, if you will. And you only lose if that is the case if all 4 of you are fully corrupted. And so what you have is these big bads that are going to be having their individual event decks that you're going to be going through, and having divine powers that you're going to have to be dealing with over a certain number of rounds, depending on what the scenario that you're doing is going to be based on. And now that's going to be customizable or modular, I believe, in the sense of whether or not you wanted the big bad as well as the scenario that goes along with it. And so it gives you some specific setups, and it has a lot of attributes that you're going to be managing alongside the way. And they offer you several different options of doing. They offer a Greek and a Judeo-Christian in the base game, but they also offer Egyptian as well as, I believe, Chinese with one of the other expansion options as well. The issue is that with this, there is a big price point increase when you start looking at those expansions. The base game itself is going to cost you $66, but it's going to cost you another $110 for those extra 3 expansions, because here's this $179 pledge right there. Woo! So there you go. I don't know how that happened, but anyway, but that's the difference between those pledges. And this is actually going to get you just standees, though. if you want the minis to go along with this, it's going to be another 70, what? No, that's going to be another $99 on top of that. Because again, just like with the lower levels, you have the options of the deluxe pledge for 139 or the standee version for 66. That's a lot of money difference for miniatures, folks. That's, you know, double the price of, it's more than the price of the game. I like what they're doing here. I like the aesthetic. I mean, there's a lot going on those cards, though. That'd be my only fear. You're using these relics, sacrificing them, one-offing them, essentially, as ways to mitigate the demons that are being summoned onto the board in order to defeat the enemies in the first place. So your 8 villains are those ones that I mentioned earlier up above, and then the attributes that you're keeping track of here, the divinity, the corruption, the spiritual, demon, prestige, wisdom, and zeal. So again, you're keeping track of a lot of stuff. Here are the miniatures that we just talked about. And then again, here's some of the quotes that saying, you know, Rada's saying it's doing something cool and interesting, a new twist on things. So Nordic, that was the 3rd expansion. I don't know why I couldn't think of that, but it gives you options as well to play up with 5 to 6 people in addition, and a new phase or 2, or mechanically speaking, as well as just more cards. So if it screams Anne's End to you, it screams Anne's End to me, just with, you know, more religious based factions. So again, seems cool. This one is, though, a little bit of try before I buy, because I don't get the greatest sense even looking through the rulebook. Again, I guess I'd maybe go check out Rado's video if you're really interested, because the Board Game Geek entry actually has the rulebook on it, but it's a little bit of a denser read. It's a little bit of, okay, these are the rules, but it's not one of those where I easily get the flow like a lot of these other games. So take that for what you will, but again, it's actually doing really well. I didn't even know when this was going to launch, so I give them a lot of kudos. So $37,000, they're 200% funded at the time of me filming this, and if you can do something cool and different in a hard co-op, card-driven game, you know what? Nice work. So what else we got? Sleeper hit of the week here as well. Tic Tac Slash, 18 cards. 18 cards. You want to pay what, $12 for this? One person's the X's, one person's the O's. Deal 3 cards out to each player. Basically, make your tableau. You play together on one area, and you're just trying to get 3 in a row. Haha, that rhymed as well. That's it. You want a couple variants to go along with it? Yeah, they'll throw those in too. Ninja variants, and that's it. Free shipping. So free tier shipping. It's, you know, button shy, only Tic Tac Slash. So really kind of a cool game. $4,000. I'm glad it caught my eye, so I could talk to you about it. Lumberjack games, Flapjacks, Sasquatches, Rockets, and more. This is a combination of 3 games. You can get the base level or the deluxified level. The problem is I really don't get a great sense, more than the fact that they're basically saying that this one's like Yahtzee, and you're trying to get as many trees chopped down as well as saving the pancakes before you bust. And then if you get more pancakes and trees chopped down, you win. But you also have Sasquatch on the side of the dice there that can give you special powers. So yeah, some hype TikTok there. And then you can see the second game here, which is the Lumberjacks with rocket launchers, where you're essentially playing these rockets down in the middle of the field, and you have cards that are going to mitigate them to point them at the other people. And when the game ends, whoever they're pointing at loses. Then the last one here, Squatch and Seek, which is a memory face-down playing card game where you're playing these cards face down in the middle of the deck, and then you're trying to be the last one standing as well. So yeah, something for everyone in a slightly different way. But there's also collector's editions with deluxifications, including felt lining dice tray and a magnetic closure box. So here's the rules if you're really interested. And just from clarity here, the dice game, they give you a little bit more to go off of, and I like this rulebook because it's only 2 pages as well. So you get these trees, you have to cut them down with enough axes. Then if you want to score your flapjacks, you can score them now and get less points, or if they're still around in front of you because you keep the dice, then you can get more points for them later. But there's going to be some take that as you traverse around between players, so you're going to have to be aware of that, and when is the push your luck going to work well in this Yahtzee style game, and when isn't it? And like I said with the rocket launcher game, here you go. They show you the rockets, they show you the cards that are going to allow you to manipulate them, and winning is just when there's only one player left, when everyone else has been eliminated by those rockets being fired and taking your opponents out. That's it. That's all you need to know. I guess there is a bacon goal, though. Bacon goals. So I can't come up with a quick pun off the top of my head about that one, so take it for what you will. But they're going to do some more stuff in the future with other little deluxifications or add-ons or flexes or goals, whatever they want to call them. So check it out at the end of the campaign as well, because, I mean, they're doing really well. They're literally about to fund, you know, the time of me filming this. So there you go. Thought I'd highlight this one for a second, but I couldn't really figure out what they were trying to do with this. It reminds me of the golf game that I talked about and did a review on earlier this year, Chains, the disc golf board game. But the thing is, when I'm skimming through the page very quickly here, even though they're about, you know, little over 1/3 of the way funded, they have sort of this design contest of, you know, choose your own hole, make your own hole. And they talk about it here, magnetic disc tokens and these tokens and all of that stuff. But the whole cards are the thing that I'm really having trouble with, because if you look at how they've got it designed here, like this is the pattern of like your discs as you're tossing them, right? And this is the obstacles that you can design. But then the cards themselves, I don't actually see how these cards are going to make the disc golf course, apart from a little bit of something like that. But there's not really anything else that shows you how they're going to do them besides like some of the things that might get in the way or the different asymmetric cards that are at your disposal. And these tokens that you can utilize as well. So course conditions. So I just don't get the greatest sense of things. If you really want to go check it out though, I mean, they have the link to the rule book here. Well, no, they don't actually, just kidding. So yeah, I don't know. I can see why people might like the idea of this, but I can also see why it's not funding. You need to give me a little bit more on the page, as cool as this concept seems in the first place. So there you go. Rule the Waves, Britannia. Speaking of needing a little bit more information on the page as a whole, 1 to 2 player game of taking control of British warship during the Age of Sail. And essentially it reminds me of like a button shy style game of a 1 to 2 player cooperative head-to-head style of you versus the game. But there's these 2 little how to play videos, and that's about it. There's no rulebook, there's no anything else. It's $29 plus the shipping of $7 if you're in North America for me, or a little bit more if you're in Canada. And you can order it or pre-order it, or if you're in Europe already at this point. So again, I'd like to see a little more information. It's doing great. I mean, for $500 funding goal, $1,200 already funded, and it seems like a cool concept. But you know, with these, is it going to be stand out enough? Are you going to want to replay it enough, even with it's got a small fingerprint? So there you go. Next up, Galaxy Postman. Again, this one funded just before me filming this, and it's got $21,000 of its $19,000 funding goal, and it's doing you know, a neon version of pick up and deliver, as well as dice worker placement. So what I mean by that is you have a post office truck, essentially a galaxy spaceship, if you will, and you have 6 different actions you're going to be taking and placing dice in your cockpit as you then potentially explore, because there actually is an exploration element of this, because you're putting down these tiles to create the galaxy as you're going along in a pick up and deliver checkpoint scoring system as you go. There's going to be instant scoring as well as final game scoring. You have the option to play a shorter game of 5 rounds or up to 7 rounds if you prefer, and you're going to have a certain number of actions per round that are going to be available based on the number of dice. By the way, I wish more game pages would have something like this on the page itself. Not that it's totally accurate in all cases, but it's just, you know, something else to give a little bit of weight, depth, and clarity to, especially for the stuff that kind of falls in between. You can't really tell on surface value how heavy of a Euro game, especially of those types, it is in the first place. And the other thing that is kind of an interesting little twist here is they've got the Galaxy Core price here with the unlocked stretch goals, but then they've got like 7 different modules that are available for an additional $20. And there's a lot of modules there, and it makes me a little bit like, okay, do you need these modules? Do you not need these modules? I just played a different Euro style worker placement game that came with like its own 4 sets of modules as well in the base game. So I always kind of go, okay, well, how much was this supposed to be there in the first place? How much was this necessary? Which ones are these necessary? And the game I just played, which I'll have a review coming out in the next week or two of, I sort of felt mixed opinions, right? Like a couple of those, I felt like it was trying to take out stuff that could have been left in there very easily and should have been left in there. It was trying to make it more simple and more accessible. And sometimes I felt like it was stuff was, you know, yeah, I can give it more depth. Yeah, if you really need that, great. Yeah, if you really want it, awesome. But is it all necessary? Again, I don't really know. You're pick up and deliver, you're upgrading your ship as you go along, you're transporting, you're actually teleporting aliens from, you know, wherever you pick them up as you expand and explore the galaxy, as well back to their mothership. And that's kind of the gist of what you're going to do. They run you through here the 6 different things in your cockpit, and then you have your little robot that can help you out and choose your bonuses, and a couple of videos to go along with it. So stretch goals in addition, a few tiny ones there that they've hit or that are going to be hit soon. Here are the modules that I mentioned, and the slight deluxifications for the higher price point. Again, this is probably a try before you buy for me right now. There's a little bit of video, there's a little bit of extra that goes along with it, but I just don't get the sense of why do I need this one? I mean, yes, it has the pick up and deliver combined with the dice work replacement, which is something we don't always see, but Neon is definitely a choice and they went with it. But if you're interested, yeah, maybe it's worth a look-see. Go check out one of those videos if you want. Tell them Liege sent you. Let's talk about Farm Choice for a second. And now I'm covering this one because I covered it once previously, but they relaunched, or actually they got suspended and then they restarted essentially because of the Stonemeyer copyright issue. And so now they're back and they've got, you know, $87,000, and they've hit a little bit of a stagnant run, I think, because they actually had some momentum the first week when they launched. But I just wanted to talk about it really quickly and really briefly about, you know, do you need a slightly different, more Take That Catan? Well, people really like it because it's got more, but is it a good thing? I don't know. This is a, you know, wait and see, and they're trying to capitalize on more of the mainstream market. So we'll see if it hits home when it goes live to backers and, you know, retail later. Next up, we have Heroes of Xhandar, trick-taking duel game, a very interesting style of things. Now, they go with a trick-taking, you know, head-to-head dueling, but they also have a couple of variants in the rulebook if you check them out as well, like a free-for-all, as well as a team versus game, but they just overfunded. And what do you need to know about this? Well, it's kind of an interesting little breakdown of the pledge levels here. They've got sort of these Lego figures that are coming at the higher pledge levels. The other weird thing is right here, if you look at these 2 right here, right? So this gets you 2 neoprene mats and the Kickstarter alternative art pack for essentially $4 more, but you don't get the brick figures. And so it's just kind of weird how this is kind of breaking down. So then it's kind of like, okay, well, then you get everything all in with the $100 here, and that gets you 4 figures as opposed to only the 2 of the figures, you know, again, because those are totally deluxifications in place of miniatures, right? Because otherwise you have tokens. And essentially what you're doing is you're choosing your hero, and then each turn you have a hero deck of 10 cards potentially, and each turn you're going to be playing, or each round you're going to be playing 2 cards. And then as these cards are collected, you're going to be trying to fulfill prophecy, and you're going to be trying to collect diamonds. And then after you get a certain number of cards at the end of the round, you can put a couple of them with diamonds underneath your character. If you have enough diamonds at the end of that round, then you win. Otherwise you play another round and you go head to head, because each of these cards are going to have value in terms of the trick taking value, like a traditional take taker, but they will also have special abilities that will activate or affect your opponent's cards, or potentially even allowing you to steal other cards like the diamonds from your opponent in the first place, depending on what symbols are there, like lightning in the first place. So again, it's just kind of like, okay, well, do I need the figures? No. Is it a trick-taking dueling game? I like the combination of trick-taking and dueling, but the exclusivity stuff and the extra, miniatures here from a Lego standpoint, that's a lot of money for that sort of thing that has absolutely no aesthetic value. I mean, I see enough trouble even with Guilty Gear over at Level 9 and Exceed selling those standees, and again, totally unnecessary. But that's the question you got to ask yourself with this, is do you actually like it? You can level up as well as part of this, increasing the abilities that you're access into in the first place. You can also deck construct. Each of these cards actually has a point value if you prefer to deck construct in the first place as well, for a total deck construction point system in addition. That's kind of it in a nutshell. There's videos here aplenty. Check it out. It's a different combination of dueling and deck building than I've seen before, but the structure here is a little bit strange as well. So give it a look, see if that is something that you'd be interested in, and there you go. Going to talk about this one very briefly. Tycoon India 1981. I actually saw this over on Cardboard East on their channel previously. They had talked about it coming over to crowdfunding, or coming over to the rest of the world in the near future. And essentially, it's a more of a heavier economic style game with 7 rounds and 4 phases in each round, right? That's a lot going on, and you can kind of see what they've got going on here in the first place. And it's heavy. It's heavy. You've got some of these channels down here that you'll see, it's a little bit outside my depth. So I just wanted to mention it. If you're one of those crazy heavy people that somehow ended up on my channel in the first place, go give it a look-see and give it a chance, because they're game producers and publishers from India. So yeah, it's kind of cool to see something different. Not my ilk, but gotta highlight it anyway. Next up, Feud, Seer's Prophecy. About 50% fun at the time of me filming this. Again, sort of a little bit different card style drafting game, they say, with perfect information, because essentially what you have is you have this village grid mat in front of you that has about 6 different areas, and you're going to be taking your turns, slowly moving your characters from grid to grid here based on their cards, and then whatever area they're in gets you the resources. One of the 3 main resources of health, insight. Silver's going to be allowing you to buy more cards or workers or, troops in the first place, and you're going to be battling then afterwards, just assigning them to go attack if they're in the right area of the battlefield, going up against your opponent, trying to knock your opponent's health down to 0. You have a hero card that's also going to be in areas as well, but in like the other individual characters that you're going to be sort of recruiting or buying, your hero actually stays in between the areas, so they are present in both areas at the same time, whatever areas they're in. And that's a little bit different. It's also saying it's a perfect information because your options are going to be the same as your opponents. You can see this market grid here is going to be equally shared, and you set out a certain number and a certain production of them in the first place, and you just go then. And so everyone has equal opportunity, so it's more Euro style rather than chaotic, because again, there's no dice rolling, there's no card drafting or card pulling from a deck, and so you just get what you get. And so that's it, again, in a nutshell. Is it doing something drastically different? No, but it gives me sort of a battle line dueling style of vibe, minus the actual value of the cards. There's a lot of statistics and strengths and defenses that goes on those cards individually, and what they give you strength wise and worker wise and resource wise as well is completely different in the 20 or so different types of characters you can draft. So there you go. Feud, Seer's Prophecy. Next up, hopping over Game Found, Hybris, Disordered Cosmos, Rivalry, an expansion to the Hybrid Disordered Cosmos game that came out a couple years ago. And this is a little bit like a Lords of Ragnarok style area control, heavier game. 32-page rulebook, just so you know, you're getting into this one. And what you've got going on is a mythological sort of Greek setting where you're doing area control over 6 rounds, 4 phases in each round. First phase is actually going to be based on sort of creating your own asymmetric power on your player board of drafting what they call is a pillar. Then as a second little part of that, you actually, get bonuses put on the ones that aren't drafted this round. So in future rounds, it's going to entice you more because you get a bigger bonus that goes along with it. Then the second round is going to be the secret action selection phase, where you're trying to decide where you want your workers to go on all of these 7 different areas in the map in the first place. And then the third phase is actually taking those actions, placing those workers out in where you selected previously. Get bonuses, take actions, combat if you place to another area where another person is at. But you have certain types of workers that can actually not be going in other areas where other workers are at, like prophets, and so you have to be careful about who's going where. Now, what are the expansions bringing in with this new mechanics here? Well, you're getting a little bit of extra special cards and conflict cards and cataclysm stuff going on top of that. So a lot more of a good thing, essentially, is kind of what they're going for here. Deluxified version as well for acrylic standees and neoprene playmats. So the question is, were you aware of this game in the first place? Again, I remember this one coming vaguely around the first time I did crowdfunding, like maybe 2 years ago, but otherwise it kind of came out of nowhere and it just launched here towards the end of the week. And if you're interested in it, yeah, it's going to cost you a pretty penny, but it's got a little bit of a heavier area control style, take that vibe. So it gives me heavy vibes of like Lords of Ragnarok, Lords of Hellas at the same time. So how different is it? I don't really know. I can't really compare it head to head, but these videos may sure as well heck a lot help you. And you know what? I'll agree with that. No retail presence. I agree with that. They haven't had it at retail, so take that for what you will. There's a little bit of extras and exclusives here. How different is it? Do you need some of this stuff? Is this absolutely necessary? I mean, I am not familiar as much with this game as I probably should be. It hasn't gotten the wide notoriety or availability as all the other ones that I've, falling in this ilk as well. So take that for what you will, but give it a look-see because, I mean, again, there's enough video content down here as well that if you're a big area control or heavier area control person, yeah, I think it's done pretty well overall. So there you go. Last up here, Lands of the Mesozoic. This This is more of a dinosaur-based game, as you can see, that is heavily card-based. And so what you've got going on here is you have several different types of cards and lands, herbivores as well as carnivores that are going to be taking their place along the food chain and creating your own little ecosystem as you go. As you can see, heavily card-based, like I mentioned. So with these 3 cards here, essentially what you're going to be having to do is you're going to have to balance how many herbivores, land cards, and carnivores you have, because it's going to be sort of a set collection style that's going to be very balanced in terms of what an actual ecosystem would be, right? Like you can't have a bunch of carnivores and a few herbivores and, not very much land. And so you're going to have to manage the cards that go along with it, as well as your ability to discard cards to play these cards in the first place, as well as to do your special action that's going to be available to you. And as you balance this ecosystem, you're going to have special goals, individual goals that you're going to be trying to meet and score endgame victory points in order to win. So that's what you've got going on here. Again, it's a dinosaur themed and it's got a few exclusives here, but it's heavily card based. It's got a 12-page rulebook that you can check out if you're really interested. It's probably going to give you a lot more information. It's very text heavy though, be warned, and it's going to give you, better findings of whether or not this is for you though than the page itself right now. So I heavily suggest that you check that out if you're interested at all. Dinosaur themed, there you go. Almost screwed up the camera views here at the end. That's it. That's the roundup. That's everything right now. Again, like I said, huge September. I wasn't kidding. That video, it's clickbait, but it's clickbait because it's actual, the truth as well, right? Got some reviews coming out, got some games to play, got some of the stuff. Actually, I think I'll have at least 2 or 3 of those bigger games covered on this channel as well, like I talked about on Tuesday. Mythic Mischief, Flock Together, Defenders of the Wild. I have all of those that are going to have videos as well for those campaigns. So I'm really excited about that, folks. Yeah. Okay. There you go. That's it. That's the roundup this week. Tune in for tomorrow. More specific thoughts on the games coming the first week of September. September 5 is the day they're all launching. So take that for what you will. That's all I got here at the end. Rambling. I'm out of ramble. I'm completely out of ramble. So take that for what it is. Have a great day. See you around.